Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, the creator and host of our show. Today we welcome Mr. Shaun Rawls. Shaun is a business owner, entrepreneur, speaker, coach, consultant, and author of the soon-to-be-released book, Effortless, 18 F Words to Reframe and Repurpose Your Life. One thing I took away from our episode today, which I trust you'll appreciate, is Shaun said many times people hate change because it's not their idea, and boy, did that resonate with me. He shared many strategies, ideas, thoughts, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode. So on to the ascent. Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso. I'm the creator and host of our show. And today we are going to welcome a gentleman who I have known for a long time, was a great mentor to me in my early days in real estate with the organization that we're both a part of, and who's literally changed the world of real estate in the Atlanta area. And his name is Shaun Rawls. Now, I'm going to do an intro for Shaun in just a second. However, I do want to remind you, great place to subscribe to our podcast and get updates is www.thesuccess.com, or you can subscribe at your favorite podcast source. So let me introduce Shaun. And we already talked about he doesn't want me to do the formal intro, the big, handwritten disclosure. However, I'm going to share a few things that I think are really important. So Shaun Rawls is the founder of and CEO of the Rawls Consulting Group, a progressive, growth-minded organization that invests in people, businesses, and all aspects of residential and commercial real estate. Shaun is also a highly sought-after national speaker and author of his upcoming book on living an effortless life. And thank goodness I said that the right way. And scheduled for publication. Actually, I think we talked, it's coming out in early May. He'll give us more specifics on that. In the book, Shaun talks about when you're ready to throw your hands up, give in, give up, and say F it, that he's got a renewed meaning and purpose for the term mindset. I'm going to want to hear a lot about that. He also, effort is by giving the reader a breakthrough transformational process to take action over giving up or giving in. Shaun has spent 25 years working in real estate, built an organization that was the number one residential real estate team and firm in the Atlanta area. Over 2,000 agents producing more than $4 billion in residential sales. And Shaun's just a great guy. So Shaun, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat Mancuso. You can't call me a mentor of yours. I think you were a mentor of mine. I think you've got that backwards, my friend.
I love it. I love it. Mutual respect. Well, Shaun, so I always have fun with our guests. I say that was the official Shaun introduction. Nice. Tell us really who Shaun Rawls is.
Shaun's just a guy from Atlanta who grew up on the low end of the tracks, let's say. I've always lived in Atlanta. I've never lived anywhere else, which is kind of an interesting and fun fact for me. I went to school at Georgia Tech, and when I was there, I decided I wanted to get my real estate license, and I loved the material. I loved it so much, I thought I would go into the real estate business and not get a real job, as people said. And the rest is history. I ended up working at different real estate companies. Keller found me once upon a time in 1999. And I opened the first Keller Williams office in Atlanta. And as you mentioned, we grew that to be the number one real estate company in the state, basically. And it was an amazing and fun and gratifying run. And it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't surrounded by people like you and a lot of the people that truly were our mentors. So now I've stepped out of operations. I don't have a job or a title or any responsibility with the real estate offices, but I still own my portions of them, and I'm living a great life, and I'm living the life that I chose to live. And it's been a fun ride. And you learn a lot, and you learn about it a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the people around you when you make tough choices in life. So that's that.
Well, that's pretty cool, Shaun. Well, there's a couple things. First, though, one thing you and I have in common is I started the first Keller Williams franchise in the state of Minnesota. You, the first one in Atlanta, so that's pretty cool.
It is cool.
The other thing that we have in common, which we talked about a little bit, is, the organization that we grew up in, became a part of. There was so much that we learned and we were taught. And frankly, we're probably sheepish about, how much knowledge and experience that was gained from that. And so I know that'll come up in our journey. So let's talk a little bit about, the Success Ascent is about the trajectory upwards. We know that there's a, step backwards, maybe sideways. So let's talk about your journey in building that real estate business first. Like, tell me what caused you to go into that leadership position and start building massively.
It's interesting. It was I was at a point in my business. I was with another company, and I was at a point in my business where I really felt like there was something more than was being offered, and I was toying with the idea of opening my own firm in Atlanta at the time, and trying to figure out what niche wasn't tapped for realtors, and I just something was stirring in me, and in the process I'd gotten an offer to be the broker of a large traditional real estate company on the luxury side here in Atlanta. And I started interviewing with them. And about that time, I was introduced to a guy who owned the region for Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee by the name of Bob. And he called me, cold called me, basically. I was told he was going to call, but he cold called me and said, "Do you have time for lunch?" And I was like, "I've got like 30 minutes. I'll meet you fast. I'm super busy. I really don't have time for this, but I'll sit down with you." And we sat down for lunch for my 30-minute lunch, and it lasted 6 hours.
Oh my.
At the end of that 6 hours, I thought, if half of what this guy is telling me is true, I think this company's onto something, because I felt like they really addressed some things that I probably knew and was stirring about inside, but hadn't really put in and connected the dots in the way that I thought they had. And they had a couple of things that I hadn't thought of. And I thought, this is amazing. And so what happened is I just got really passionate about the opportunity and what it would bring to the Atlanta area from a real estate standpoint, potentially. And the leadership thing, it kind of happened. I always knew I wanted to lead. I always felt like a leader. When I was in a classroom, I always envisioned myself at the front of the classroom. So I think leadership was a natural thing for me, but it was the position I stepped into. It was kind of the obvious thing. If I wanted to do this, it had to be me. And there really weren't a lot of options at the time. And I loved it. I truly loved it. And my challenge was, where that group now has 6 offices and over $5 billion in sales and over 2,000 agents. Once upon a time, it was we had 21 agents, right? So, and we grew into like 75 and 100. And I was getting pressure from some people you and I know very well to step out of my role, because I was an OP and I was the team leader of our office at the time. And those were the early entrepreneurial days of the company. And everybody said, "You've got to get out and you need to grow more." And I was like, I don't want to grow more until I feel like I've mastered what I've got. I want to know exactly what I'm doing when I do the second one. I want to take all the guesswork out of it. And I was a little frightened, as I think entrepreneurs are, with leverage. And I didn't, I really was a little skeptical about letting go of the reins and letting somebody else have the reins somewhere else. But ultimately push came to shove, and that's exactly what I had to do. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because learning to succeed through others was the first and probably one of the most important lessons I had to learn as a young business owner. I was 29 years old.
Right.
And it was a huge lesson for me.
So when you were going through that and you had to make that decision to leverage, because one of the things in coaching and consulting entrepreneurs, and I know you know this, and yet I want to pull it out of you, what forced you to get to the point of realizing the leverage piece? Because we know it, we intuitively know it, and yet we struggle with it. Like, entrepreneurs struggle to let it go. So what do you think caused you to finally realize or have that realization?
I think the environment we were in did. I mean, it wasn't like you knew it. It was, you were being told that in stereo. And not only were you being told you needed to learn how to do this, you and I would go to events, and people that were ahead of us would sit down on a stage and say, "Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I would tell you need to know. If you're going to do this, or you want to grow a business that looks like this, here's what I wish I'd have known when I was in your shoes if you were coming out of it." And I think the fact that it was completely in stereo in my life, from my local leaders to national leaders to peers and other mentors, at some point I felt like I think I must be slow, and I need to just trust the fact that I'm surrounded by people a lot more successful and a lot smarter than me. At some point, I got to be smart enough to take the hint.
Yeah, and then you some amazing leaders. I mean, just absolutely amazing leaders. And so let me ask you this: what surprised you or were you surprised about anything within that journey of growth? Like, was there anything that like you went, whoa, I didn't expect that?
I think, wow, where do you even start with the surprises, right? I think I could probably rattle off a list off the top of my head without trying to get conversational. I would say, so when you say surprises, what surprised me? The rate of growth surprised me. The tactics, the defensive and not so ethical tactics of your friendly competitors in the industry surprised me. Um, the lack of vision that real estate agents had surprised me. The clinging to comfort zones that people do surprised me. Um, I think hiring and the trickiness in hiring, and not just hiring, but maintaining a cohesive team, and how challenging that could be, particularly as your organization gets bigger and bigger, that surprised me. Um, I think my realizing and looking at my own comfort zones and my own, and just like the leverage piece we just talked about, that's probably one of many where you're kind of confronted with your own limited beliefs,
Right.
from as you kind of grow into the leader you want to be, or the successful person you want to be. You're going to be you're There are just going to be days where you're standing in front of the mirror looking at somebody that, oh my God, I can't believe that's the guy I'm looking at. And I can't believe he thinks like that. And how long have I been behaving this way with such a limited mindset? And I think they say when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And I think we're supposed to do things in a guy you and I both know by the name of Rick Hale, who's one of my favorite people on the planet.
Yep.
He and I have been confidants from day one, and he's talked me off the ledge a number of times, and I've talked him off the ledge a number of times. But one conversation we had in particular, I called him, I was complaining about something, one of these limiting belief things where I was frustrated about what I was figuring out. And he said, look, man, don't beat yourself up. He said, we don't get it right by getting it right. And I never forgot that, because you do realize that I think screwing up is the best teacher. I mean, we can be told by the best gurus, we
Right.
can be given the best books, we can be shown the best films, we can do whatever, but until we scrape our knee on the pavement and really know what it feels like to sting like that,
Right.
do we not want to do that again? And I think we have to, I think the people around us, including our parents, they're supposed to make sure we don't die, right? They're
Right.
not, they're not supposed to keep us from feeling pain or frustration or regret, or that's how we learn. And so I
Right.
think that for me, there were just so many ahas personally that get reflected back at you in what you say and think, but also in the people around you. And if you want your people to behave differently, if you want your employees to think more entrepreneurially or more own their jobs more, if you want your agents to think more business wise, then, as our guy used to say, you got to step up your game, because they're not going to do that unless they're learning from you.
Right. So, in your journey, if you had to do it all over again in building the businesses, well, I mean, there's probably many things you might do differently, but what would be a couple that would share if you were consulting somebody and they said, "Hey, Shaun, what would you do differently if you had to do it all over again?" How would you respond to that question?
I think I would. Trust myself more, and I think I would bet on myself more. I think there was, looking back, I think if I were to go back and change anything, I probably would have changed. I think I gave. I'm one of those people that I believe in you more than you believe in you,
Yeah.
and I really wouldn't change that about myself, but it does have some blind spots, right? And
Right.
and the blind spots that show up with that for me have been, I believe if I make you a partner in this and you sitting at the table with me as an owner investor, and I give up some of what I have the right to have for you to sit at that table, that you're going to be amazing. And I don't think I was very optimistic on the front end because I was one for all for one. I was the ultimate three musketeer for everything we did. And I was ready. I wanted to include everybody. I wanted everybody on this journey, to the event that I bet on other people more than I bet on myself in certain situations financially. And I probably should have really been clear about my motto, where I put some more pressure on myself.
Yep.
And gave less responsibilities to some other people, because I think I would have built the same business, but probably done it in a way that I would have had a few less regrets along the way. But that's a negligible. It's not like something horrible happened. But looking back, I probably would have squeezed a little bit more, and gotten a little bit more uncomfortable and taken on gotten a little bit, spent a little bit more cash or taken a little bit more risk in places, instead of spreading it out to make it a little bit more comfortable. I should have lived in discomfort a little bit more in certain areas.
Well, and there's two things that come from that. Obviously, you believe the best in people, right? And so you want to create opportunities. And then the other thing was, I mean, that at that time when we were, the opportunities were put in front of us, that was kind of the model that we were suggested was the model for maximum growth at the time. And what we've experienced and learned over time is maybe it wasn't the absolute best way to do it. So that makes sense. So I want to ask you a couple more questions on your journey. Then we're going to shift to this book thing, because I'm just so excited for you in your book. So as you were you decided, okay, it's time for me to go in a different direction, right? And decide, reinvent yourself, if you may, because that's what we all do, right? We go to a point, it's time to reinvent ourselves. We're passionate. We poured it all in, and now we move to a new opportunity. Like, what was your thinking and defining moment around that? Like, what caused you to go, you know what, I'm ready to reinvent?
It's funny, in the book I write, I was ready for some big changes in my life. The problem that I had was I had no idea that I was. And so I had had some issues personally, and but I just disregarded them over time, and they were little issues that grew into big issues. And I figured, you know what, if I can make my businesses great, and I can walk out the door every morning and focus on my business, and I can be a great dad to two boys, then all my boats will float. And at the end of the day, that it doesn't work like that. You can't sweep important relationships under the rug by focusing on other ones and hoping that something else is going to catch up, because it just doesn't work that way. And so what happened was I just had kind of worked myself into a personal situation where I had to decide if I was going to follow something that I had really taught and believed in my whole life, which was live your best life, or live a compromised life, or follow a road that's, and this probably goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, I could have taken the easiest thing in the world for me would have been to stay where I was, not make any changes, not rock any boats, and just and go keep performing on a professional level that kind of left me, because of everything else going on, a little bit unfulfilled, if not a lot unfulfilled personally. What happened was I felt like I had 2 feet in 2 canoes, if that's an image for you. And,
yes.
And so I was sitting on a lake with 2 feet in 2 canoes, and I had to pick.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if I don't pick a canoe, I'm going to end up I'm going to end up wet, and I'm going to end in the middle of this lake. So I chose my canoe, and it was scary, and it was uncomfortable, and it was weird. And my schedule went from 100 miles an hour to about 2. And I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was with everything going on in my life, it was such an opportunity for me to kind of go in and just kind of listen and observe and just float. One of my chapters in my book is the F words is float, and it's the power of doing nothing. And I think if you're an entrepreneur at all, and anybody listening to the show, I'm sure is, we're hardwired to go. We're hardwired to make things happen. We are uncomfortable with quiet, and we are uncomfortable with static noise. And I think there's such a power and sometimes we're pushing on the door that's meant to be pulled, and
Right.
we're pushing so hard that if we would just step back and take in our environment and just listen or wait, that door will open for you. And it's the universe is always at play, and it's kind of always running in the background like a good computer app. And every once in a while, it's going to make decisions for you and it's going to point you in a direction if you're open to it. But if you're moving 90 miles an hour and you're pushing on the door and you don't want to hear anything, you're going to miss some pretty subtle but powerful clues for your life. And that's what people need to listen to.
Well, it's funny, Shaun, and you know that, last year I made a significant change and moved away from some relationships and things that I had been doing for 9-10 years. And you mentioned something which I experienced, and it was almost like a withdrawal. It was like, go. I was on 100 flights a year and flying from city to city, and and all of a sudden now I'm like, okay, I'm home.
Right.
Right. And so I can't wait to read the book on that chapter, because I think that's going to have an impact on me. So let's transition. So what caused you to write the book first? What was like the stimulus? I know everybody wants to write a book, right? Everybody has a book in them, we hear.
Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting, Pat. It was I was a couple of years out of this transition that we've talked about, and I really was contemplating change for some reason, and why people change, or because everybody says everybody fears change, everybody fears change, everybody fears change, and I was just thinking, I had this thought in my head. It's like, why do people hate change so much? Why do people hate change? And it occurred to me that the reason I think people hate change so much is because it's never their idea. But if you're at work, like you and I have been a leader at the office, and if you and I have an idea that we want to bring to our office or our agents, we're pretty excited about it.
Right.
Right now, and then we have the meeting with the staff, and we go, I can't wait to tell you guys, I've got this idea. We're going to change the way we process and we do. We're going to be more efficient and and everybody else goes, oh shit, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and it's because it's not their idea. And even though they're going to love it, their initial thing is, that's my comfort zone you're messing with. I like the way it works. And so the more I thought about that, the more I said, really, most people get to great change in their life by saying F it.
Yeah.
By going, F it, I'm out of here, or F it, I give up, I give in. And the problem is, in most contexts, when we get to a point of frustration or whatever it is where we say F it, we are giving up to something, or we're giving in to something or someone. And that's kind of, and whether it's good for us or not, that's how a lot of people back themselves into change. So I thought, what if F it wasn't a bad word? What if F it was a good word? What if it was a constructive word? What if it was a word, when you said F it, it wasn't the word that we all think of typically? What if it was a different word? What if it was a bunch of different words? And what if they were words that could truly help you come about change proactively and constructively for your life, that's based on passion, what you truly, truly want for yourself? And then how does that happen? And that's kind of how it happened. And I'll tell you, it's an interesting story. You probably remember this, but once upon a time, Gary Keller introduced a drawing for us. He was notorious for drawings, right?
And I think if he could still use the Elmo all the time, he would.
He would.
Yeah.
So one of the best things I ever saw him draw in an Elmo, but it felt like a math problem that still needed to be solved for me. But he drew a triangle, and it was a pendulum. And he said, so if you have a pendulum, it swings this way and this way. And what he said is, what he drew is everything down in the middle of that, where the pendulum kind of settles, that's normal. And everything outside of that, from left to right, that's where all the chaos happens. And he said, it's where the magic happens. Outside of the comfort zone and normal, this is where the magic happens. Do you remember that?
I do. I do.
Okay, so I had that fixated in my head. And one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, I've solved the problem. And what was missing from that with me was it's not both sides of the same chaos. We have negative chaos,
Right.
and we have positive chaos, because we have chaos in our life that when we're going through it, we just feel like the hockey puck and we're just getting smacked around, whether it's, an unhappy agent or the real estate commission or the IRS or an attorney that thinks that they are going to solve a problem for somebody, or somebody's leaving today, or somebody's not coming, or a closing blew up and it's a big client. There's all this stuff where we just have, or, our kid is sick and we had an important appointment. There's negative chaos that's just, it wears us out, and it drags over time. And sometimes it's a fireball and sometimes it's a rust out, but it creates these negative emotions that lead to what I call F it. And then we have the positive side of it where we feel like we're flying with a tailwind everywhere we go. We should,
Right.
This feels great. I love this person I hired. This person's energy is great. I had the best meeting. I taught the best class in Minneapolis today. There was 350 people and everybody just was all in, and it was the best, energy transfer I've ever been a part of. And that's positive chaos. And we all know what positive, and we're just in love, right? You fall in love. That's positive chaos like nobody's ever known. And those are all great things, but we have to realize that chaos isn't chaos. There is negative chaos and there's positive chaos, and we have to separate the two. So I wrote this book so that people could look at their life and go, where am I settling? And where am I unhappy in my life? And what do I need to do about it to make sure that I get out of this and don't just get sucked into living in a consolation prize life, when I can be fighting for a life that's truly of my choosing and design? And that's kind of the premise of the book. It's, I talk early in it that, one of the great things about the human species is we are the most adaptable species on the planet.
Right.
And we say that with a lot of pride, but the problem is we don't always use that superpower for good. We adapt to poor finances, poor jobs, poor relationships, unfulfilling friendships and lifestyles and religions, or whatever it looks like, because we adapt. We love people and we just adapt. And I've always told my kids, just give me a stick and I'll beat you with it. I don't care how big it is or how small it is. I will win. I will hit the ball farther. I will do it.
Right.
I can adapt to that equipment, but we have to learn to adapt to things that are better than ideal, not less than ideal for us, because I think a lot of people think adapting just means settling. And I think a lot of people have kind of learned to do that in their life without even really observing it or thinking about it or putting it under a microscope long enough to go, hey, I'm better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. The potential that we all have is way more than we realize. And it, we struggle with it because whether we think we don't deserve it, or somebody else told us we didn't deserve it, or somebody else around us, there's so much, and we always have more potential, right? We always just have more potential.
We do. And it's, one of the things that I mentioned in this book is, our brains do this funny thing, and it tries to protect us, right?
Right.
So whenever we're approached with something new, if it's a new math problem per se, we bring our old solution to a math problem to the table. So what happens with that for most people is our ego and our brain is helping us look at the world through a lens of, if something similar comes to us at 40 years old, and the last time that the last significant time that feeling came up, we were 8.
Right.
We're facing a 40-year-old problem with an 8-year-old reaction internally, because we never grow up from that, because our brain wants to keep us safe.
Absolutely.
And we have to realize that it hasn't matured like we have, and we have to realize that that's a piece of us. That's not who we are.
Well, I want to acknowledge you, because you helped me today discover an aha. So when you said that we fight change because it's not ours, I don't know if you've ever done this. You're driving down the road and you drive down this road all the time, and you see road closed sign, and you don't believe it, so you go around the sign. You've done that, right?
I've done it. We're realtors. That's what we do it for a living.
Like now I know the reason I go around it is because I didn't put the sign there. It's
so
somebody
true.
else's change. I
It's
love
so
it.
true.
I love it. Oh
It's
my
true.
gosh, that's a great aha for me. So, talk to me about the biggest obstacles in your journey that you've experienced. I know we talked a little bit about one, which was leverage, but you mentioned when we started about growth. Tell me about that.
Well, I think that if you're going to build something, right? And again, I think we were trained by the very, very best in any business setting, but I think one of the most valuable things that, again, you can hear, but until you're faced with it, you may not get it. But if you're going to hire people to support you, if you're going to create leverage of people around you, which you have to have if you're going to grow a business that's going to sustain itself and pay you passively at any point in time, you have to be willing to have a bigger vision for yourself, your life, and your business. It has to be big enough to support the visions of everybody in your organization. And that sounds like, oh yeah, I can do that. Until you're hit with it.
Right.
And you realize, my God, I might be an impediment to my own organization and more importantly, the people who are a part of it, if I don't kind of figure out how to leapfrog my mindset to a level of discomfort for me that provides a level of opportunity for my people.
Yeah.
And I think that, until you grow, you don't know. You just don't know. We can study it, but
right.
Again, and you're not, and here's the good news, you're going to screw it up, but at least screw up. If you're going to strike out swinging. Don't watch it. Just swing. And I think you're just going to have to go out there and swing the bat, and you're going to have to get uncomfortable, and you're going to have to figure out. And, we always had a really good set of principles that taught us how to hire people where we knew what they wanted to accomplish in their career. So before we hired them, we had to check ourselves and go, wow, this person really, they want to be in my shoes in a few years. Am I okay with that? And am I able to think big enough to where if they're really good, would I give them my shoes and go find some other shoes for me to stand in? And if you ask the right questions and they give you the right opportunity to kind of look at who you are, what you're doing, and whether or not you're real, because we're in an industry where people hire people all the time out of need,
right?
And really for their own benefit. They're not doing it for mutual. They don't. If I give you a job, most people in our industry think, well, hell, I'm doing you a favor, Pat. I'm giving you a job. Instead of going, if you take this job, you are going to be you're going to bless my life and my business more than you'll ever know.
Right.
I owe you a debt of gratitude, and I want to create fertile soil for you to grow in. This is a two-way street, and I am so grateful that you would even consider this job for me. But I promise you, if you'll take it, we will be partners, and you will always feel like you're working with someone, never for someone. And I think that is the $1 million Achilles heel question for most entrepreneurs, to cross the bridge of going, I need somebody, not because I need to pay somebody and use them for my benefit,
right?
Who can really impact my life and give me the freedoms that owning a business is supposed to give me.
Well, you said something really important, which the aha moment for a lot of entrepreneurs is to never even ask the question about creating a big enough life for opportunities for others, right? And so I love that. So last thing on the book, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of final questions. The journey of the book, it was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah, funny, right? I feel like I've been sitting on a pot of boiling water forever. You know what's interesting? We talked about the universe, right? And sometimes the universe just is running and it's doing its thing, and we're pushing and we're pulling. Pat, if you had any idea how hard I pushed to make May 5th, 2020 happen as a publish date, only to be told time and time again by Simon & Schuster and my publishers that we're not publishing the book this year. And here's why. There's a pandemic. Nobody knows where the world is going. If we let your book publish, we would be doing you a disservice. And we don't even know where the market is. And we have an election following up that's looking like it's going to be fairly heated. And your book's going to get lost. So we're tabling all new authors until next year.
Wow.
So I had to take it and go, fine. And I'll tell you this, everybody that has read the advanced copies of this book has said, do you know what a blessing it is to have somebody pick up this book on the back end of this pandemic and having had at least the time in the penalty box that COVID provided to kind of think about their life and be given this gift of a book that really shows them how to make some mindset changes and some strategic changes in their life to get what they want. This is the best time it could have been published. And I think about it all the time. I go, it's a great example of the universe, because if I got my way, it would have gone out fast, not right. It would have been the wrong time, right book. Now it's the right book, right time. And I have the universe to thank for that.
And it's officially coming out when? May
4th.
May 4th. It's coming out.
It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble, and they say Amazon says it will arrive on May 4th. I thought it would ship May 4th, but they're saying it's arriving May 4th. So if you order it online, it's coming May 4th.
I love it. And we're scrolling the website down at the bottom where the easiest place to get it is. So Shaun, let's shift gears. I got a couple of final questions for you. Best advice you've ever been given that hopefully you followed?
Best advice that I've been given that hopefully I followed. Well, I think, God, there's been so much of it. I think don't put the cart before the horse in terms of lead with revenue, right? Don't do the build it and they will come program. Because I think we're caught up in pleasing people too much, and we want all the glitzy stuff that companies flush with money have. And even when we don't have it and we think, well, we'll do that and we'll compete and we'll build it. And that's what's going to attract everybody there. It's go back and revisit Simon Sinek and realize that, it's your why that people buy into, and more than the gadgets and the furniture and everything else. But, I saw a great clip recently of Jeff Bezos when he started Amazon. Mm-hmm. And it was a shot with him. He had hair, and he was sitting in what looked like it might have well have been a storage unit. And he had a whiteboard that had the word Amazon written in like some dry erase marker, and had a couple of notes on it. And he had a computer on a card table, and he was starting his Amazon book business. And I thought, wow, what a great reminder that that's how you get big. You start small and you earn the right to get big.
Right.
And by the way, if you've not read, for any entrepreneur on this call, and you probably have because you're all into that, but I read his book, Invent and Wander, the new book that came out this year.
Okay.
Invent and Wander. It's writings by Jeff Bezos, but it is, the first half of the book is every shareholder letter that he's written since like 1996. He writes one every April. And so it's chapter 1 is the first, and it goes through. And Pat, it is a lesson in leadership. It is a lesson in clarity and commitment to who his ideal customer is, which is the customer, nobody else. And he goes unapologetically says, look, we're going to try a lot of stuff. I'm going to throw a lot of shit up against the wall. Some of it's going to stick. Some of it's not, and we're going to lose money in places and whatever. And if you're uncomfortable with that, do not invest your money in my company. I mean, it is such the nuggets you'll get from a coaching is it's.
Oh wow!
Everybody should read that book.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that, because I always ask for book recommendation, and now you just put it on the table. The Universe Working.
Well, I give you my own book for the recommendation.
Well, that's number 1, and then Bezos is number 2. We'll put him aside right now. Let's flip it upside down. What's the worst advice that you've ever been given that hopefully you didn't follow? And if you did, what did you learn?
Worst advice. Worst advice is to get caught up in other people's drama to solve it. And getting on their level and being empathetic and inserting yourself into stuff that really is just an emotional and frivolous tailspin. And I think that, and here's the deal: when you're growing your business, everybody in it has at times critical importance to you,
Right.
because they're comfort food for you and they're a sense of security. It's like I've always said, most people will put up with a mediocre assistant because it's better than not having one.
Right.
And so they get caught in that trap of, catering to mediocrity. And what happens is, and maybe that's probably a better way to put it than emotional or drama. It's just be careful of living with mediocrity, because you, if you make decisions out of fear, they're going to be the wrong decisions. And I will tell you, we've all tested it.
Absolutely.
We've all made decisions because, gosh, well, if I do that, then I'm going to lose so-and-so, and that might have a trickle effect. So I'm not going to do that. Or I might do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. Or if I'm going to let this person stay in the role until they find another job, or until I find a replacement for them, because I'm fearful of what would happen if they truly left and I didn't have anybody to replace it. Bad move, right?
Right.
It off. So I think the don't make decisions out of fear, because I don't know that that's advice anybody's giving me, but it's advice I've heard, and I've definitely fallen prey to that. And I think a lot of people have. I just think it's part of the growth process. But I will tell you, as a reminder, we need to hear that a lot, because if you're looking at the matrix of whatever it is and you're going, ooh, that scares me a little, take that off the table and make the decision, because it's probably going to be a better decision.
Yeah, it's a scarcity mindset, right? I'm more fearful of the consequences versus what, is the real consequences they're in front of me right now. So that's great advice. So I'm going to give you a second to kind of think about a final thought here that I would ask you for. And I just want to thank all of our listeners today, and those of you who'd be listening on the podcast. Again, we so appreciate you and your support. And www.thesuccessascent.com at Apple or any of your favorite places to subscribe. We definitely want you to go get Shaun's book. I'm going right after we're done so I can have it as soon as it comes out, because apparently I didn't get an advance copy. It's okay. However, I can't wait to read it. So I had to have some fun with you. So give us a final thought to take us away. What would you share other than, go buy the book, which is a great opportunity to grow? What would you share as a final thought?
Look, if entrepreneurs or the people that are tuned into this show, and they're smart enough to listen, I would have to say, you have to be you're just going to have to face the music about your own limitations and as an entrepreneur, and the biggest obstacle that's in the way of you being a superstar who has winged it their whole life based on your charisma, your good looks, your connections, your energy, your enthusiasm. That's only going to get you so far, and it can get you very far. But if you want to take that and look at that as, okay, I can graduate from college, and I can actually get a graduate degree that will make me earn more money and have more security for the rest of my life, that graduate degree looks like embracing some things that are not natural to you. And that is most importantly, that I've seen in my experience, is it's leverage and it's systems. So if you can figure out how to live with leverage so that other people are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you because of the opportunity you're providing. Yeah. And you can learn to systematize parts of your business that are not systematized and need to be. Those two things are probably the greatest opportunity for you to grow from an entrepreneur to a true business person, in my opinion.
I love it. I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Shaun is obviously a speaker, a consultant, and soon to be best-selling author. So if you do need to track him down there, www.shaunrawls.com. Shaun, thank you so much for your time today. I truly appreciate it. I know you're extremely busy getting ready for the book launch, and I just want to thank you. And we so appreciate you being here today.
Matt, it's been fun. It's great to see your face too, buddy. I'm glad you're doing well, and I miss seeing you on a daily basis.
Well, you too. Well, hey, thanks so much, everybody. And as I end every show, be safe, be happy, be healthy. Take care, everybody. Bye. If you've not yet subscribed, please go to your favorite podcast source and subscribe to The Success Ascent, or simply go to www.thesuccessascent, and that's ASCENT.com, thesuccessascent.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching you on the next ascent.